Are they late to Bitcoin? Is it too late to buy Bitcoin, Fred, and benefit from it?
Oh, I mean, we're super early. We're very, very early. I mean, this is like we're the beginning of probably a 20-year journey of massively high returns. It's going to be, we're going to have massively high returns for 20 or maybe even 30 years. That's basically, I think, where we are. So, you know, you're nowhere. You're at the beginning, like you're in the first inning. So I think you're not at all late.
Bitcoin's rise is far from over, according to Wall Street veteran Fred Krueger. He believes we're still in the early stages, with less than 1% of wealthy individuals owning Bitcoin. Despite its growth, Krueger sees massive potential for the next 20 to 30 years. Even at $100,000, he believes Bitcoin is still in the first inning. Don't miss out on the upcoming gains. Stick around for more insights from Krueger on the future of Bitcoin.
I do think that we're in kind of now for a long, very positive route, similar to buying Apple stock, you know, in 2010 or something, or Amazon in 2010, you know. And, you know, those, I can tell you, look, I owned Apple in 2008. And I bought it when they first came out with the iPhone. I was like, oh man, this thing's going to be great. And the stock doubled. It did bad, and then it doubled. And it recouped after 2010. I said, oh, I'm done. Great trade, fantastic. Stock went up 50 times after that. 50 times, okay? Apple has gone up 50 times from 2010 till now.
That's crazy.
And you know, did they have a new product? Not really. They had the watch, you know? Yeah. They had the watch, you know what I mean? The iPhone came out while I still had Apple shares. I bought in a little bit along the way, but I had a pretty big position in Apple. And, you know, Amazon, you could have avoided the crash of 2000. But then afterwards, it's afterwards that even in the last decade, Amazon just did phenomenal, right? So it was a very mature company, nothing fantastically new, or there was no strategic reserve that moved Amazon up, right? Just went up, just kept on going up, right? So I think Bitcoin's going to be like that. It's not going to be like we need this strategic reserve, or we need this Saudi sheikh to buy it. This thing's just going to work. This thing will just work, and it will work. And really, you gotta just extend your time frame to about a decade. And I think you got to figure out, okay, how do I make sure that I have Bitcoin, my core position, throughout this decade? So whatever your plan is, you got to make sure that you do not sell more than 20% of your Bitcoin for the next 10 years. So you got that 20% you can play around with. You can do whatever you want. But keep 80%. As long as you keep 70 or 80%, the numbers are going to be amazing for you.
Yeah.
All of us old timers are going to be really, I think, are going to really, really benefit from just the pure growth factor. And I think that the key is just to kind of keep a level head and stay calm, and understand that there will be volatility, and fine. We're okay with it. And it's honestly volatility. When you bought you came in 2016, right? So about like $500 Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
Right. So
first Bitcoin was $670.
Okay, so 670. Yeah, I remember when it crossed 1,000. Man, that was a crazy time.
Yeah. And
I was like, again, right? Because of course, it was there in 2013, but but yeah, but if you bought Bitcoin at 500 and it goes from 100,000 to 50,000, it hurts a little bit. But it's not a panic attack, right? On the other hand, if you went huge all in right now at 100,000 and it sort of ticks down to 50,000, that's kind of that's where the you do have panic attacks at that point. So I think
Yeah.
it gets easier as you're older, as you're further into this, right? It definitely gets easier. Look, Michael Saylor came in a lot later than most of us did. I mean,
Yeah. He had a lot more capital though.
yeah. But what I'm saying is, you and I we predated Michael Saylor, right? Okay, and for me it was 2019 when I really saw the light, right? But and it was 2016, right? So Saylor is 2020, you know. So I think the thing about Saylor is, though, it wasn't only the capital, it's just he developed really strong conviction, you know, very, very early.
Yes.
And I think that's the difference, right? The difference is, what's your level of conviction? How convinced are you that this thing called Bitcoin is actually going to be probably the foundation of the world's financial economy 20 years from now? You know, and I basically talk to some Bitcoiners and stuff, and that's sort of the first thing I internally try to figure out is, are they really as convinced as me that we are talking about something that will 100% be uniform? It'll have 100% penetration down the road. Like, because I think a lot of people still don't, even if they made money, even if they were early, even if they got into the cycle, they still don't really think that, they really don't think people are going to be using Bitcoin, and they don't see the, you know, the end game of hyper Bitcoinization. But I think you know, there are a bunch of us who do, right? A bunch of us who really can see this thing, and we were like, this is gonna happen, you know.
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly how it's gonna happen, with what strategic reserve or this or that, or I don't know, like, you know. But I can just tell you that I think Saylor's genius is that he realized, okay, this is definitely gonna happen. I'm 100% convinced this is going to happen. Now, given that he has that conviction, you know, how do you orient your portfolio given that conviction? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he's done an amazing job at that, you know.
MicroStrategy has expanded its Bitcoin holdings again, buying an additional 2,500 BTC for $243 million. This move reinforces the company's strong belief in Bitcoin as a long-term asset and solidifies its position as one of the largest corporate Bitcoin holders. Now let's dive back into Fred Krueger's exciting outlook on Bitcoin.
It's very possible that we get some completely insane blow off top. It is possible, right? Why? Because, you know, it's not going to be, but it won't be the same kind of people. It won't be the kind of the degen retail from, you know, 2020, 2021, right? Or 2017. It won't be the same guys who bought Tron and, you know, and FTX and, you know, Solana and stuff in 2020. What I think it's going to be is a bunch of extremely wealthy, rich people who all of a sudden sit there and go, wait a second, I only own 0.01% of my net worth in IBIT. Maybe I increase that to 2%. And that, if we get that shifting, you know, that'll just completely, you know, that's what could do it, right? Because there's so much of this money that's in real estate, that's in bonds, that's in overpriced stocks. And they don't have enough allocation. They have no allocation to Bitcoin. So to me, it's like a complete and utter inevitability that happens. But, you know, these people are very, as you know, they're very, very, now we're still at the point where they're bad-mouthing Bitcoin. They're like, yeah, maybe not really an asset. There's no value, no intrinsic value. So it may take a little longer than 1 year for them to completely come to, but I don't think it's going to take longer than 5 years. I think, you know, to me, the horse race started a year ago with the ETF.
Yes.
Because before the ETF, like you're some wealthy guy in Miami, right? I mean, are you gonna go buy a cold card, learn to use that thing, and then move some money, buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, and then move it? You're not going to do that, right? I mean, the amount of wealthy people who do that, it's very small, right? And they're not going to leave. They may have a Coinbase account or something, but they're not going to leave $5 million on Coinbase, 10 million. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what wealthy people do. They have wealth managers, they're conservative, they have places, brokerage accounts that they had money in for 30, 50 years, And I mean, I've had my Goldman Sachs account since 1998, you know what I mean? Or 95, so we're not people are cautious with their money. They're not like, oh, new paradigm, I'm going to put all my money in Coinbase. No, they're not going to do it. So I think it's going to change, but all they need to do is just allocate now a very small amount into IBIT or FBTC. And those guys are going to clean up. They're just going to clean up. All the ETFs. But I mean, I think those two in particular are just going to be, IBIT is going to become bigger than the S&P, SPY. It will.
Are they late to Bitcoin? Is it too late to buy Bitcoin, Fred, and benefit from it?
Oh, I mean, we're super early. We're very, very early. I mean, this is like we're the beginning of probably a 20-year journey of massively high returns. It's going to be, we're going to have massively high returns for 20 or maybe even 30 years. That's basically, I think, where we are. So, you're nowhere, you're at the beginning, like you're in the first inning. So I think you're not at all late. And there's something very fractally about Bitcoin that it kind of like, in a way, 2024 Bitcoin was never cheap. Remember when you bought your first Bitcoin, Nico? It was expensive.
I thought I lost the train. And look, I was very young at the time. I was very kind of desperate point in my life. So but the same feeling you have about, oh my God, am I late? It's 2016. This thing was discovered, okay, 7 years ago. No, the point I was trying to make, Fred, is that like, so when I got in, it was under $1,000, and for the first cycle, so the first 4 years, I did whatever humanly possible to put as much as my income into Bitcoin, and I was very desperate, and I wanted to get out of the situation that I was in. However, I thought I was late because I met people that bought Bitcoin under $100. I met people that bought Bitcoin at $100 or $200. If I knew where Bitcoin would be today, instead of putting 80% of what I had, I think I would have put 95 to 100. I think I would have borrowed money.
Simon Dixon bought Bitcoin at 10 cents.
I would have borrowed money.
Wayne bought, who I do the podcast with, he bought Bitcoin at, $1. You know what I mean? Like,
crazy.
You just have to get it. You have to get, it doesn't matter. Like, but what I'm trying to say is that those feelings are all, the feeling that you had in 2016 is the same feeling that some new guy is going to have in 25, excuse me now, looking at $100,000 Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. You're very, very early. This is less than 1% of rich people even have any Bitcoin. So we're tremendously early. There's going to be a lot of great gains, but it's going to be Bitcoin only, just and don't try to time it. I mean, that's the main thing. Everybody who's trying to time it is going to screw up.
Fred Krueger suggests that the next Bitcoin surge could be driven by the ultra-wealthy reallocating their portfolios, not retail investors. If millionaires and billionaires increase their Bitcoin exposure from 0.01% to 2%, it could unleash a huge influx of capital. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.